I am unique. I am different. I am queer. I am unusual. Then again, I am not all that different. I am human. In a world filled with many man-made problems and social conflicts, isn't fitting in painfully overrated? I do not fit neatly into every box of human convention. Who does? For the most part, I am a misfit. I tend to break free from categorical boxes that keep me from reaching my full potential. I am compelled to find a deeper connection with life, even if I must go against the grain, against the norms that others follow. I am a trans-spirit. A what? Yes, a trans-spirit. This is a brief introduction to the trans-spirit experience. Let's take a look at what it means to be a trans-spirit. Then you can decide for yourself how much this speaks to your experience, or perhaps reminds you of someone you know. Transspirituality may be a radical departure from how we commonly think about norms, or deviance, or what is conventionally right and wrong. To get what transspirituality is all about, there are some things we first need to cover. In needs and norms, we take a look at what exactly is a need and how our needs relate to the norms we follow. We then illustrate three different types of normativity, and these tie in later to what the transparent experience is about. In divergence and deviance, we look at how our response to needs often diverge from a more natural way to satisfy needs, and how this ties into the experience of deviance. This too speaks to the transparent experience that will be illuminated later. In normativity and transnormativity, we take a fresh approach at understanding different kinds of deviance and consider some forms as natural and necessary. You see where this is heading? In conventionality and transconventionality, we take this concept of transnormativity as a potential way of life. Then we finally segue into transspirituality. In transspirituality, we go even further and delve into a profound sense of connection experienced by those embracing a transconventional existence. We get to what it means to be trans-spirit, to experience a trans-spirit life. One final note before we get started. Trans-spirituality may speak to a spirituality for those with a transgender experience, but for others as well. Gender is not the only binary that can be transgressed or transcended by a force of nature. We will look at a few other binaries that could be transcended or transgressed as part of experiencing the full potential of life. Indeed, there are many. Understandably, this can be a lot to wrap one's mind around. So let us take this one step, one item at a time. What we call a need is the experience of homeostatic imbalance. Homeostasis is the natural process of moving toward ideal equilibrium. Life is in constant motion. We tend to avoid deadly extremes. There is an optimal range for life to function. We feel this when the room is too cold or too hot. Regulation mechanisms are constantly at work to bring us back into dynamic equilibrium, back toward an ideal balance. Since life is in perpetual motion, we do not spend long at this ideal center. It will get too cold or too dry at some point, and too cold or wet at another. We feel desire when experiencing a need for something lacking to be drawn in. We feel pain when we experience a need for something excessive to be removed. When the body becomes dehydrated, we experience thirst. When we drink enough fluids to satisfy that thirst, the body eventually signals it is time to remove the excess. justify a visit to the restroom. Likewise, when confronted with a possible threat that could exceed what we feel we can handle, painful fear is triggered to consider retreat. When encountering a rare opportunity to build up some personal resources, the body may signal for pursuit, felt as a desire to get more. Much of this experience is automatic. We rarely pause to think about each action, about how we are going to return to a desirable equilibrium. Rather, we follow a norm. Norms are the established ways for addressing our needs. In the interest of survival, it helps that we are creatures of habit. Who pulls their hand out from a fire because they carefully decided it was the right thing to do? Even quenching thirst is routine and rarely deliberated. For our most common needs, our responses are routinized. We follow predictable patterns, and each time we experience our needs relieved, whether they truly are or not, our habits are reinforced. Are these good habits, or are they bad? If you think about it, there is no good or bad outside of the experience of need. If a need is resolved, then we generally consider this experience as good. Whatever helps satisfy that need, whether it truly deserves credit or not, is regarded as good. But if a need is not resolved or actually made worse, then we generally consider this as bad. Whatever is associated with obstruction to resolving the need or the resource of making it worse is generally regarded as bad. It is only the experience of need that triggers the use of these labels of good and bad. We tend to follow the norms to pursue what is valued as good and to avoid what is shunned as bad. Norms do evolve. Most norms are obvious. Feeling thirsty? Drink some water. Feeling cold outside? Step inside where it is warm. Overwhelmed with grief? Go ahead and cry. Overcome with joy? Laugh out loud. Some norms are less obvious. You move to another country and find your neighbors have borrowed your garden implement, returning it the next day without blemish, without ever asking. Do you confront them? You overhear a coworker spread a false rumor about a supervisor no one particularly likes. What do you do? The more obvious norms precede the development of human culture. They are innate to the human experience and in non-humans as well. These are emergent norms. They emerge thoroughly in the evolution of life. As such, they are fully integrated in the web of life. They are rich in natural detail. They incorporate countless specifics for resolving the many needs life has encountered throughout time. We can find them operating in our limbic system, our inner brain. Sometimes these norms are not enough. Where does one go for water? In what container is it best stored? How do we make sure it is drinkable? Human ingenuity creates convergent norms to serve as conventions for such needs. To know when to speak honestly or when to hold my tongue results as a convergence of optimal choices. If I candidly speak the truth and get hurt for it, with no sensible gain from being honest at that moment, I will likely generalize that it is bad for me to be forthright in such circumstances, and good for me to remain silent. All options are not available to me, so I am drawn to a convergence of the few I can internalize as good. In my belief system, I am putting together what seems to work and leaving out what seems not to work. I am formulating how I will automatically respond to such needs as they come up in the future. In this way, convergent norms build upon naturally emergent norms. We will resume this discussion of needs and norms in part 2.